From the hottest sports podcast around Valdosta State University, it's the Extra Ember from the makers of the Inferno. Bringing you all the sidebars, the supplementals, and more Blazer sports stories to be told, right here on the Inferno Blazer Sports Show.
It's a new day in Titletown, or rather, I should say, actually, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, as we provide a new episode of the Extra Ember on the Inferno Blazer Sports Show. I'm Jaylan Scott, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode. For this little mini episode today, hoop season is winding down, but we're turning our attention to the hardwood as the NCAA Division II Men's Basketball Championship Tournament is finally here. Yes, after 4 months of basketball across this great nation, the 64 best teams will battle it out for the ever-elusive NCAA title. However, I will only be covering the South Region's 8 teams, although albeit a little late, as games are already going on as the recording of this video, which is March 15th of 2025. We're going over our topic list, which I'll provide timestamps for the YouTube upload if you'd like to skip ahead. I'll be going over team by team, talking records, schedules, roster glances, notable stats, and more. These won't be matchup overviews, more along the lines of what we can expect from every team. I'll also be going in order of these matchups, starting with the 1 and 8 seeds, then 2 and 7, 3 and 6, and 4 and 5. So stay tuned as the Extra Ember presents South Region Rundown. Tipping things off here with our host team, the number 2 in the nation, Nova Southeastern Sharks of the Sunshine State Conference. Again, the 1 seed and the host team, hence why I'm here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, recording this instead of being in Titletown. 30-1 overall, one of 2 teams in the South Region with 30 wins this season, 19-1 in Sunshine State Conference play. They are not the team, or excuse me, they are not the one team to go either with 1 loss or undefeated in conference play. We'll get to them in just a moment. 17-0 at Rick Case Arena, which is a continuation of a Division II record of 81 consecutive home victories for the Sharks. So definitely having that home court advantage is going to play a ton in their favor. As a matter of fact, that D2 record that's still going on is 81 consecutive home court victories. My goodness, their only loss this season was to Palm Beach Atlantic on January 8th of 2025, only by 3 at Palm Beach Atlantic. The next closest game to a loss that they experienced was a 105-104 win over Alabama Huntsville. In the Sunshine State Conference tournament, they defeated Barry University, Tampa, and Florida Southern, each by scoring over 100 points. Against Barry, 116, Tampa 104, Florida Southern 108 for their 4th straight Sunshine State Conference championship. Last time in the NCAA tournament, they were defeated by Minnesota State Mankato on a game-winning 3-pointer in the final seconds of that championship game. This will be the 4th straight NCAA tournament appearance for Nova Southeastern, in which they are 3-time South Region champions, looking to make it a 4th-time South Region champion. 4 times in a row. They were the NCAA champion in the 2022-23 season, where they went 36-0, becoming the 6th team in Division II history to go undefeated in a season. 36-0. That is utterly insane. Against other South Region teams this year, they swept Tampa, Lynn, and Florida Southern in the regular season, beat Montevallo and Alabama Huntsville in one-off games, but has not faced Valdosta State or Savannah State this season. So they are a perfect, if I'm reading this correctly, 10-0 against other South Region teams this season. MJ Araldi, the star player of this team, Sunshine State Player of the Year, first team All SSC, 24 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game. Currently NVSE's single season scoring leader with 746 points and counting. That's at the time of this recording, not post any games being played here on Saturday. Some games would have already been played. I'll come around to that as soon as I mention it. He scored 30 points 4 times this season. Dallas Graziani, the 5'8 junior guard, also first team All SSC, made the All Sunshine State Conference defensive team as well. Pretty sure the GSU would like to have one of those. 13 points a game, 3 rebounds a game, 9.7 assists per game. So nearing averaging a double-double. 42% on the floor, 31.5% from beyond the arc. Rounding out with Riker Sark, the 6'9", 5th-year forward, was second team All Sunshine State Conference, also made the defensive team as well. Around 18 points per game, 7.4 rebounds a game, 1.4 blocks and steals a game each. That is some incredibly impressive numbers for the 5th-year forward. Nova Southeastern, first in Division II offensive rating at 129.4, paint points per game at 54.7, points off turnovers a game at 26.7, points per game at 104.1 a game. That is outstanding. That's currently outpacing some Division I opponents. I'm just going to make a note here for Alabama, Florida, because I'm currently watching that game that's going on. Alabama leads Division I in points per game at 91.7. Nova Southeastern would certainly outdo them in terms of points per game by 13 at 104.1. That is utterly insane. Going over some quick play style notes, Nova Southeastern, when I watch them against Montevallo, they love to trap a ball carrier of two defenders on defensive rebounds and inbounds, forcing pace and long, risky passes in the backcourt, kind of forcing a team to play more transition offense than anything set up, which is something that a lot of teams play anyway, a lot of motion offense, a lot of transition offense, while Nova's offense themselves relies on setting multiple screens on and off ball. You see a lot of, not going to say moving screens, but dribble handoffs and screens to create space and driving lanes, kick out opportunities. Particularly their sharpshooting at every single level. They can shoot close, mid, and from distance. They are excellent at all three levels of shooting. Team play and assist making, for easy mid-range and layup opportunities, one of this team's greatest strengths this season, something they've been able to ride on through this entire season. Again, 30-1 overall. There's a reason this team is 30-1. I'm kind of getting my words stumbled here. Effective shooting from every level and pressuring opposing teams into making mistakes and converting from them. Jim Crutchfield has done such an amazing job as head coach of this Nova Southeastern team. The press defense is outstanding. Speaking of a press defense, we'll get to that later on in this video. But some weaknesses that I think other teams can look to exploit. If a team has good quality depth and three-point shooting at the wings, that's been, or at least according to CBB Analytics, that's been the area that Nova Southeastern has had the hardest time defending this season, if you look it up on CBB Analytics. So if you're facing off against a team of quality depth, guys who can sub in 3 or 4 guys throughout a game, maybe up to 5 guys, whole platoon swaps that can match you pace for pace, kind of using their own play style against them, that might just be the crack in this team's near perfect exterior. The current opponent will be the number 8 seed in the Savannah State University Tigers. Last time out, Nova Southeastern defeated Savannah State 119-62 in their first ever meeting on March 12, 2022 in the NCAA South Region first round. And speaking of Savannah State, the SIAC, Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference champions, the number 8 seed, will be moving on to 18-11 overall, 12-9 in SIAC conference play, 11-2 at home, 4-9 on the road. That is a massive blemish on any team to have heading into a national tournament. A poor road record, you better hope you have some firepower there that you can actually bring on the road from Savannah down to Fort Lauderdale. Currently riding an 8-game winning streak heading into this tournament. It started with a 11-point win over Allen University on the road. It carried to the conference tournament, knocking Miles out of the SIAC contender spot as Miles lost in the first round of the SIAC tournament. So Savannah State defeating Tuskegee in the championship game by 1 point, 67-66, I believe it was. They've claimed the number 8 spot. This is their second SIAC tournament championship among 4 other titles in the 70s and 80s. Last time they were in the tournament was 3 years ago, where they lost to Nova Southeastern, as I've just previously mentioned. This will be the 5th NCAA tournament appearance for the Savannah State Tigers, which the furthest they've made it to the Elite 8 back in 1980 and 81, where they beat Southwestern, now Rhodes College, for the regional title, but lost to Otter Main in overtime in the Elite 8. And an extra note, Savannah State will be one of only 5 HBCU schools to make the NCAA tournament this year. Virginia State, Fayetteville State, Lincoln, Missouri, and Bluefield State were also the HBCU bids to make it to the NCAA tournament this season. This will also be the first time the CIAA, Central Intercollegiate Athletic Association, will have 3 bids in the tournament since 2013. Against other South Region teams, Savannah State lost to Florida Southern in their second game of the season. This was the only other South Region opponent they've played this season. Javante Landy doing most of the heavy lifting, 13 points per game, was the HBCU National Player of the Week by Box to Row as of March 10th, so just 5 days ago. That started only 11 games this season, 9 consecutive, so not a lot of starting experience, but he's going to be relied on to make a lot of good plays here. 3-game, 10-plus point scoring streak. Quad King, second on that list, 12.6 points per game, 3.6 rebounds a game, 2.7 steals a game. Scored double digits in all but 7 games and was the MVP of the SIAC tournament. And we go to Jeremiah Bars, who is also scoring 10.3 points per game, has had 12 blocks and 30 steals this season, a double-double in the year, and 1.4 blocks and steals a game. And another extra note, no Savannah State University Tiger was named to the all-SIAC teams. Now, first, second, third, and freshman teams, yet Quad King came away with the SIAC tournament MVP. It's a little bit of a weird thing there that they're doing over there in the SIAC. Going on to some notable stats, Savannah State, third in Division II in defensive points per game, only allowed 62.3 points per game. Now, they can be looked at as a side effect of playing in the SIAC, which has one of the lowest points per game on average per team out of the 3 conferences represented in the South region. 12th in forced turnovers per game at 18.41, 18th in 3-point defense, only allowing 30.5%, and 18th in turnover margin at plus 4.2, 26th in steals per game at 9.7. So this Savannah State team is not a pushover. Despite the record, despite the overall weaker conference compared to the Sunshine State and the Gulf South, Savannah State, they've shown that they're able to hang. They're able to hang with some of these tougher teams, at least statistically and on paper. Some play style notes is that Savannah State, they play a lot of iso ball, a lot of isolated matchups, working the ball around the perimeter, kind of more similar to small ball. Defense plays man-to-man, switching off defenders and screens, and usually they look for paint touches at the top of the lane, usually something you'd see Princeton offenses do, but kind of more like Delta State, they rely more on those one-on-one matchups of setting up Landy and King for those one-on-one matchups. I think their play style kind of reminds me, again, a lot of Delta State with Chris Terrell and KB Brooks and the style they play. Face guarding on defense, forward play, steals, and transition offense. One of this team's greatest strengths. They're 7th in Division II in field goal percentage and transition over the past 5 games, according to CBB Analytics, scoring 66.7%. That's 2 out of 3 shots that you're making in transition offense. They can play with pace. They can play with tempo. The mid-range shooting and denying opponents scoring opportunities has been one of the best things of this Savannah State squad so far. Now, of course, that comes with the caveat of the biggest weakness that they have is in scoring. 65.3 points per game. I'm sorry, but when you're going up against a team that averages 104 a game, among other teams that are scoring 98 in the low 90s to high 80s per game, you need to step up your scoring game. And going back to that Florida Southern game, their only South Region loss this season, they scored the most points they've had this season in a win or loss, even though they lost 94-97. So scoring is going to be a critical factor for them to have any sort of hope here against Nova Southeastern. Leaving gaps open in the middle of the court on defense, below average field goal percentage in every basic zone compared to D2 averages, according to CBB Analytics. They need to pick up their shooting. They need to find their shots. And if you can get those ISO matchups and get moving on offense, they might just have a chance. I'm not going to write them off. Obviously, I don't know how that game will go, or if it's going on right now at the recording of this video. So let's see if I am proven right or I am proven extremely, extremely wrong. Well, moving on to our 2 versus 7 matchup, a very familiar opponent for Valdosta State in the number 3 in the nation, University of Alabama in Huntsville Chargers, earning the 2 seed out of the Gulf South Conference. 30-1 overall, 22-0 in Gulf South Conference play. So they are undefeated in GSC play this season. They're the other team who has also won 30 games this season, 14-0 at Kelly Court, 12-0 on the road, 4-1 at neutral sites. Currently riding a 30-game winning streak heading into this tournament, which is absolutely bonkers to think about. Their only loss this season was to Nova Southeastern in Game 1 of this 2024-25 campaign, which is, I think I'm going to run out of words in my vocabulary to describe that. But going more on Huntsville, this is their 6th GSC tournament titles. They defeated Lee at home, then Delta State, and unfortunately Valdosta State 101-95 for their 6th GSC tournament title, 3rd in the last 5 seasons. The last time this team was in the NCAA tournament, they were defeated by Embry-Riddle in the first round, 104-78 last season. So for this team that has a lot of seniors on it, this team has a lot of seniors on it. Their starters are all seniors, and their 2 primary bench guys are seniors as well. So I can imagine last year leaves a major sour taste in their mouth that they're looking to clean out here this season in Alabama Huntsville's 7th consecutive appearance in the NCAA tournament, 17th in program history. The furthest they've made it, however, is in the Elite 8 back in 2010-2011, where they beat Stillman for the regional title, but lost to Minnesota State Mankato in overtime of the Elite 8. Which, by the way, is one thing I want to note, because I'm not going to get to any other GSC team until the next matchup. The only active Gulf South Conference team to make the Final Four was Delta State back in 1986, 1987. Furthermore, the GSC has 3 NCAA Division II basketball titles, but all from former members. North Alabama in 1979 and 1991, and Jacksonville State in 1985. No active GSC team has won a championship since then. Huntsville is certainly looking to be the first to do so, be the first to make it to the Final Four out of the Gulf South Conference since Delta State all those decades ago. Against other South Region teams, their only blemish was losing to Nova Southeastern 105-104 in overtime, but they swept Valdosta State in the regular season and in the champ game 3-0, and also swept the University of Montevallo, who we will get to later. And Tommy Murr, Blake Campbell, and Daniel Saylor. I don't know if there's a more dominant trio of players out there in potentially all of Division II basketball. Tommy Murr, 21 points per game, first in Division II in free throw percentage at 94%, scored double digits in 30 of 31 games he's played this season, first team All GSC, GSC Player of the Year, and made it to the All GSC tournament team as well. 41 points against Auburn Montgomery on February 20th of this year. Blake Campbell earned the GSC's tournament most outstanding player, averaging 20 points per game, 6.3 rebounds a game, and 6 assists per game in 3 games of the tournament. First team All GSC as well. Scored double digits in all but 6 games, averaging 16 a game. Daniel Saylor, the 6'11", 245 senior forward, 13 points per game, 9.6 rebounds a game, 2.5 blocks per game. He is a blocking machine, dominating in the paint and under the basket, 4 double-doubles in a 5-game span, and his first in Division II for field goal percentage at 74 freaking percent. No, that is not a typo. I wish it was. Also made the second team on GSC as well. Extra note, Mick Hedgepeth, head coach of Alabama Huntsville, won GSC Coach of the Year in his first season, taking over the helm for the Chargers, who are second in offensive rating, 125.1. That's only second to Nova Southeastern this season. 32nd in turnover percentage, 13%. 19th in paint points per game at 41 even. They're first in Division II in 2-point percentage at 62.2%. Of course, that is heavily influenced by Saylor going 74% on his field goal percentage, who also I have learned has only taken 1 3-pointer in his entire career and made it. So there's a little bit of that as well. He's a perfect shooter from beyond the arc at 6'11". Good Lord. Second in true shooting, which combines field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage at 64%. 12th in 3-point percentage at 39. 4th in defensive rebounds per game at 30. And 47th in blocks per game at 4.0. Now, when I was watching some of their game against actually, I realized I had a massive typo here. I forgot to fill in the specific information. Quick-paced offense, finding open shooters through drives and cuts. Tons of off-ball movement for Huntsville is how they got around Valdosta State in their press defense. They're not too big on driving the ball, but will do so to attract defenders to find open kickouts, or they'll just give it to Saylor and just let him do his job. Just let him do his job as you would a 6'11", 245 senior forward. paint and perimeter scoring. Alabama Huntsville above average in shooting in every basic region, according to CBB Analytics. Boxing out of defensive rebounding, cutting and finding space, and defensive adaptability from zone to man are really some of the biggest strengths of this Huntsville team that led them to this 30-1 overall record. But in that zone defense, there's also a caveat there that a team with good cutters and good motion offense could more effectively get around and through a 3-2 zone defense and being forced to play at a slower pace. Huntsville is big on motion offense from what I've seen and what I've covered on this team and what I've seen when they played Valdosta State. They're big on motion offense. So if you can get them to slow down and play at a slower pace and not exactly pressure them or force them to have to make plays and quick second decisions, that could play in your benefit, but it could also just as well be your downfall, as it allows them more time to get more creative on their play. So you just kind of have to play it by ear. And their current opponent will be the number 7 seed in the University of Tampa Spartans. They're 6-3 all time against the University of Tampa Spartans. So we'll move right on to 20-10 overall, 11-9 in Sunshine State Conference play. Had won 4 straight, then lost 4 straight, then won 6 straight in a span of nearly 2.5 months from January 15th to March 4th. They defeated Embry-Riddle 90-73 on the road, then lost to Nova Southeastern 104-80 in the semifinal of the Sunshine State Conference tournament. Last time they were in the NCAA tournament, they were defeated by North Alabama, former Gulf South Conference member, in the first round, 72-68 in the 2013-14 season. So it's been nearly 10 years. It's been 11 seasons since Tampa has gone dancing, and this will be their 18th appearance in the tournament, and they're looking to make it past the first round of the South Regional since 2008 and potentially make it to the Elite Eight for the first time since 2000, or the 2000 to 2001 season. So nearly 25 years since Tampa has made it to the Elite Eight. They made it to the Final Four in that 2000-2001 season, where they eventually lost to Kentucky Wesleyan in overtime, 85-84. Tyson Latow, the 6'8", 230 senior forward, has been the bright spot of this team so far. Leads the Sunshine State Conference in offensive, defensive, and regular rebounds per game. 9th in Division II for double-doubles with 15. He's had 10 rebounds in all but 9 games. Second team All-Sunshine State Conference, averaging 14 points per game and 11 rebounds per game. So averaging a double-double on the year. He's flanked by Brian Williams, dishing him the ball, the 6'1", 185 senior guard. 16 points per game, nearly 4 assists per game, shooting an astronomical 57% on the floor as a guard. By the way, he had to miss 9 games from December 3rd to January 11th, but it hasn't slowed him down one bit. He scored double digits in all but 3 games that he just played this season, obviously excluding the 9 games that he missed. Third team All SSC this season, and was also part of the SSC All Newcomer team in the 2020-21 season. And he's also flanked at the guard position by Caden Froby, the 6'8", 190 graduate guard, averaging 11 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, and 2.5 assists per game. Played and scored in every game this season, had a double-double against Roberts Wesleyan. More in Tampa and some notable stats. They are 9th in pace in Division II, 79 possessions per 40 minutes, 6 in offensive rebounds a game, averaging 16 a game, 6 in assists per game at 19, 9th in points per game, averaging 89.1, second in second chance points per game, 17. So they're averaging 17 second chance points per game. Second chance points are so vital for fast-paced moving offenses, and that's what Tampa is. Against Palm Beach Atlantic, some film that I watched, they push the ball up the court with tempo into more of a motion offense with quick passes, plenty of motion at the baseline with off-ball cuts, falling passes, and setting screens. So they don't really do a lot of dribble handoffs, but rather they'll pass, go to where they pass, set a screen, and then they'll roll out. They also play man defense, pressuring the ball carrier on inbounds. They did that against Florida Tech. I don't know if we'll see that again here in this tournament. Offensive rebounding and second chance points, as I've said, have been this team's strength this season. Speed up and down the court, consistent matchups on defense with that man-on-man. They don't really switch off on defense. They'll stick to their man, and they'll stick to those favorable matchups that they can continuously go to. And the constant movement on offense can confuse an opposing defense, particularly one that likes to switch. If you like to switch off on a man-to-man defense, or if you're playing zone and you're trying to keep track of who's got who, all the motion from Tampa could really, really give a defense a hard time. But that also kind of has its caveat, as I've also seen from watching their film. If they start losing rhythm on offense, they start going out of sync, it could lead to some very costly turnovers that they've committed in some of the games I've watched and doing research for this episode. And facing a physical dribble drive offense and having size matchups being taken advantage of. Their main big is Tyson Littau, standing at 6'8", 630. They kind of play more, I'm not going to say small ball, but they're focused more on speed and being shifty. They're a little undersized. They're a little bit of an undersized team. So a team with stronger and bigger guards and forwards who play a more physical style could be troublesome for this Spartans team, as they'll take on Alabama Huntsville. Looking to beat Alabama Huntsville again since 25 years ago, when Tampa defeated Alabama Huntsville 64-55 in the second round of the NCAA tournament on March 11th of 2000. And with that all being said, I'm going to take a quick break here before we move on to our final two matchups, the remaining teams of the South region, because also I have been yapping into this microphone for nearly 26 minutes now. So I'm also pretty sure you are a little tired of hearing me talk. So we're going to take a short break here on the Extra Ember and be back with the remaining four teams in the South region. You're tuning into the Extra Ember. Here, we'll be back in just a moment.
Listen, man, there's only one thing you must understand about us, man. If you can't take the heat, what makes you think you can survive the inferno?
Be sure to tune into The Inferno every other Friday at 10 a.m. on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Audacity. Also, be on the lookout for any extra embers like this one by following our Instagram and checking out our website. You're listening to the Valdosta State Sports Podcast by the students, about the Blazers, for Blazer Nation.
Welcome back to the South Region Rundown here on the Extra Ember. Jaylan Scott here with you all. Recording out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, as I'm a little behind on this episode, but still going to get it out anyway. Also because this is for a school project, so I kind of have to do this, and I'm already late on it, so I might as well keep things going. We're going to move things on here to the number 18 ranked team in the nation, the Florida Southern College Mocs out of the Sunshine State Conference. The number 3 seed, 25-8 overall, 14-6 in Sunshine State Conference play, 17-3 at Jenkins Fieldhouse, 8-5 on the road, winning 7 of their last 10, including a 5-game winning streak before the Sunshine State Conference Championship versus Nova Southeastern. They've won 10 straight games between November 17th versus Augusta to January 11th versus Barry. Of course, again, they came second in the Sunshine State Conference, losing to Nova Southeastern in the championship. But of course, that just pushed them to a higher seed of playing the 3 seed now. Last time they were in the tournament, they defeated Clark Atlanta 80-72, then West Georgia 93-87, and lost to eventual NCAA finalist Nova Southeastern 98-66 just last season. And this will be Florida Southern's 34th appearance in the NCAA tournament, which if I am correct, that is more appearances in the NCAA tournament than even Nova Southeastern. Let me look at my notes really quick here. I didn't write it specifically how many times Nova Southeastern's been in the NCAA tournament, but that may actually be correct. That Florida Southern's 34th appearance might be the most out of these 8 teams here. They won the 2015 national championship, defeating Benedict, West Georgia, Lynn, Southern New Hampshire, Bellarmine, and Indiana, Pennsylvania for their second national title, looking to advance to the Elite 8 for the first time since that 2015 championship run. So it's been 10 years now since Florida Southern has made it to the Elite 8, and they're 45-31 in NCAA tournament games dating back to 1972. They defeated Savannah State this season, swept Tampa and Lynn 2-0 and 3-0 respectively, but has been swept by Nova Southeastern 0-3 this season. Jaden Booth, the main star guard for this team, 6'2", 185, 21 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, and 4.8 assists per game as well. has been 2 rebounds or assists short of a triple-double twice this season, has scored double digits in all but 3 games, and currently on 1,000 career Florida Southern points, putting him as the 47th player in Florida Southern college history to score 1,000 points. He just made back-to-back first-team All-Sunshine State Conference teams, also was put on the All-Tournament team, and was also a 2023 NABC first-team All-American. He's flanked at the forward position by Alex Steen, the 6'8", 285 junior forward, 19 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, so another player averaging a double-double, and 3 blocks per game, 56% on the floor, 70% at the free throw line. Has had 10 rebounds in 9 of his last 10 games, 1 block in all but 3 games, so 29 to 32, 17 double-doubles this season, 5th in Division II, also made first-team All-SSC, and made the All-SSC defensive team again, and the All-Tournament team, and kind of rounded out with the 3 notable players by Dominic Denny, the 5'11", 165 graduate guard, 12 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game, 10 points in 7 of his last 10 games, 16 multi-steal games, so in half the games he's played, he's stolen the ball away multiple times, and has also scored 1,000 career points, making him the 49th player in Florida Southern history to score 1,000 career points as a Moc. He's had multiple assists in all but 2 games and had a double-double against Nova Southeastern. And little side note, Jaden Booth and Alex Steen were the only Florida Southern players with all Sunshine State Conference honors in both the first, second, third teams and defensive team. Kind of surprised Dominic Denny didn't make that list as well. Not even third team or even second team. He just didn't make it at all. Furthermore, talking about Florida Southern stats, they're 8th in pace with around 79 estimated possessions per 40 minutes, 27th in turnover percentage at only 12.9%. So only around 13% of their possessions end up in a turnover. 6th in fast break points per game at 20.4. 9th in percentage of their points per game this season being on the fast break. So 22% of Florida Southern's points per game are on the fast break, which I just explained was 20.4 points per game. 16th in paint points per game at 41.4. 6th in points per game overall at 93. This is a high scoring offense here in the Florida Southern College Mocs. 8th in defensive rebounds per game at 29. 1st in blocks per game at 7.0 blocks per game, which is utterly insane. And 3rd in what's called Hakeem percentage, which is a sum of teams' block and steal percentage. That's done by CBB Analytics. They are 3rd in that category at 26.2%, which essentially means 26.2% of Florida Southern College's opponents' possessions end up in either a steal or a block. I was watching this team play against Rollins. There's a lot of spacing out on the court, looking for a suitable 3-point shot in the early possession. So this is a heavy 3-point shooting team. So you kind of see this team do drive-by screens on the ball, and they love to drive and kick it out to the perimeter. Their defense kind of reminiscent more of a 3-2 zone defense with some rotations like you would in man. So you have some switching parts, some switching players on defensive assignments. I guess I can kind of be looked at as a thing to confuse confuse an opposing offense a little bit as to whether the team's running man or zone. Some potential strengths that I figured out on this team is 3-point shooting at the wings and mid-range shooting from the mid-paint areas. So around that 12 to 14-foot range and on the wings as well. Catching defenses off guard with quick transition plays off rebounds and turnovers. One of this team's greatest strengths this season. But unfortunately, I did come across a number of weaknesses of this Florida Southern College team. Switching positions on that 3-2 zone can lead to some open spaces for opposing three-pointers. Rollins took major advantage of that in the first half of their game against Florida Southern, being forced into corners where they're only shooting 28.5% from those corners. D2 averages around 36. If they end up playing a defense that can match their speed and match their tempo up and down the court, it's kind of the same thing that I said about Nova, is if you have a team that can match your pace, then what does your team really provide that's different, that can break you away from what we've seen from other teams this season who run the same kind of tempo and the same kind of pace up and down the court? And also, some really shifty guards could break through They're looser. They're kind of more looser defensive pressure, especially compared to another team that I'm going to mention here in Lynn. I'm going to come right back around to that when I talk about Lynn's defensive structure. Their current opponent's going to be the number 6 seed in the University of Montevallo Falcons. This will be the second time these teams have ever faced off. The first time was back in November 8th of 2008, 73-58 in favor of the Mocs. But moving on to the University of Montevallo Falcons out of the Gulf South Conference, the number 6 seed. Now, a little bit of an interesting note here. This game will have already been played and done. As a matter of fact, I know what the final score was. I'm not going to say it here, but I did not see most of the game, if any of the game, honestly. So I really don't know how that game went, at least on the day of this recording. So I'm still gonna do Montevallo's recap and talk over here, and you can kind of cross compare to that game footage to see how incredibly correct or how incredibly wrong I am. Yeah, because basketball is not exactly my thing per se. I'm not exactly the biggest. I don't exactly have the biggest IQ when it comes to basketball. But more on Montevallo: 20-10 overall, 15-7 in Gulf South Conference play, 17-3 at Central State Bank Arena, 8-5 on the road. They won 7 of their last 10, including a 4-game winning streak. Started conference play with 6 straight victories from December 7th, 2024, to January 4th of 2025. They defeated West Alabama at home, then lost to Valdosta State 79-81 in the GSC semifinal. Last time this team was in the NCAA tournament was back in 2016, where they were defeated by Wingate in the Southeast region. Yes, I said that correctly. Montevallo used to be in the Southeast region when they played in the Peach Belt Conference before coming back to the Gulf South Conference. And this will be the 12th appearance in the NCAA tournament, their first since that 2016 season. So it's been nearly 10 years since Montevallo has gone dancing. And the furthest they made it was, I don't think I actually wrote that in correctly. Whoops. But Montevallo has made the NCAA tournament in the Southeast region. Southeast region, they've made it 7 times. In the South region, 5 times. Of course, that is of course a result and a byproduct of switching conferences, as they were originally in the Peach Belt, who play in the Southeast region. Now back in the Gulf South Conference, where they play in the South region. Montevallo is 22-11 in NCAA tournament games with 8 Sweet 16 appearances. Brandon Fusell, Jaylan Curry, Camden Andrews. Again, another dynamic 3-player tandem. Fusell, second team All GSC. Curry as well, second team All GSC. Fusell, a sophomore guard. GSC All-Tournament team, has had double-digit points in all but 5 games. Currently has scored 956 points in 2 seasons at Montevallo. So he's going to hit that 1,000 mark really, really quickly. Jaylan Curry at the forward position, a 6'8 junior forward, 16 points per game, 6 rebounds per game. Has had 2 10-plus rebound double-doubles, or at least has rebounded more than 10 times twice, both those which were double-doubles. 10th in the GSC for points per game, and has also made 2.23 three-pointers per game. You don't expect that out of a 6'8 junior forward, but it's always good to have a forward who can shoot, apparently. Wrapping things up with Camden Andrews, the 6'1 redshirt freshman guard, the former Nova Southeastern Shark, 10 points per game, at 41.4% on the floor. Has had an assist in every game and scored 10 plus points in 7 of his last 10 games. Fusell and Curry were the only Montevallo players with all GSC honors this season. Just going to move straight on into their play style here from what I have seen. From what I've seen from Montevallo, they play more 3 guards, 2 forwards. So they have a dominating paint presence, which is one of their greatest strengths in the along with straightaway and left wing 3-pointers. That's been their hottest spots in 3-point shooting this season. Again, with their strong forwards and Jaylan Curry and Derek Moore clogging the middle, they have a dynamic duo of forwards over the middle. Strong driving ability from their guards, a 3-2 zone defense. Fusell is a great facilitator and playmaker. He's had multi-layer point scoring ability from paint and distance, which is also one of the greatest strengths of this Montevallo Falcons team, and for depth with Jay Gillespie sitting on their bench. And number 32, I can't remember his name right now, but there's some great forward depth for Montevallo. A great potential weakness for this Montevallo team is allowing 3-point shots. So against a team like Florida Southern, who loves to take a three early in their possession in transition, that could be a massive, massive issue for Montevallo to put away and deal with, as they allowed 27.4 3-pointers a game. Again, switching positions and defensive responsibilities in that 3-2 zone leads to prime opportunities for catch and shoot opportunities, because you don't want to be caught ball watching, and Delta State made them pay for that when they defeated Montevallo earlier in the season. They're another team who plays more of a 3-2 zone defense, but moves their guys around. You switch guys on and off, switch around defensive responsibilities. But when you do that, and when you have to deal with screens, especially a team that puts up a lot of screens and you're having to move around and figure out who you're guarding, that's going to be a massive, massive problem to come up against a team that loves to take the transition shot. Also, bench scoring, only averaging 17 points a game off their bench, which is 212th in Division II, and defensive rebounding. They need those if they're going to have any sort of a good chance to fight against Florida Southern, which I think was going to be an either way kind of game anyway. I think that game could have gone either way, or I think that game could go either way. If you play that game 10 times in a row, I think Montevallo comes away with at least 5. You come away with at least like winning 50%. And now we're going to move on to the final matchup of this South Region 1 that I'm getting ready to call later today, again, as the recording of this video. But it's your number 15 in the nation, Valdosta State University Blazers, the number 4 seed in the South Region. 25-6 overall, 18-4 in Gulf South Conference play, 13-4 at the complex, 11-1 on the road. I believe VSU actually has the best road record out of any team in the South Region, so that absolutely plays toward their favor, heading to an arena that they haven't played in quite a while, but they have been road warriors this season. Technically 1-2 in neutral site games, but that's neither here nor there. Or 1-1, I want to say, but that's neither here nor there. VSU had a 10-game winning streak from December 15, 2024 to January 25th of this 2025 year. 3 of their 4 losses this season were only from Alabama Huntsville. The other ones were from Delta State and Morehouse. And Montevallo at the final game of the season. In the GSC tournament, Valdosta State took down Union 180 at home, beat Montevallo 81-79, then lost to Huntsville 101-95. Last time this team was in the NCAA tournament, they made an elite appearance, winning the South Region, but lost to Indiana and Pennsylvania. And this will be their 14th appearance in the NCAA tournament, their first since 2020. So actually the last time in the NCAA tournament, that is incorrect, as the last time they were there, they made it in 2020, but that was canceled due to COVID. But the GSC still credits it as a tournament appearance. So the furthest they made it was that Elite 8 appearance in 2010, where they lost to Indiana, Pennsylvania 80-64 in the quarterfinal round, looking to win their first tournament game since that 2010 Elite run. So it's been 15 years since the Blazers have won a game in the NCAA tournament, and they're 8-12 in these tournament games. Now, against other South Region teams, they've been swept by Alabama Huntsville 0-3 and have won 2 of 3 against Montevallo. So I guess it's quite favorable for them that they don't have to face another team in the Gulf South Conference until potentially the Southern Region Championship game. And this team's 3 notable players, Carlos Hart, Drew Mills, and Malik Leach. 2 of them are starters. One of them is a 6-man who I think absolutely deserves to be put here as a notable player. But Carlos Hart, 19 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game, double-digit points in all but 1. Team leader in points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, and steals per game. Is over 1,600 career points between Valdosta State, University of New Orleans, and South Georgia State College. First team All-GSC and made the GSC All-Tournament team as well. Drew Mills, the 6'5", 220 junior forward, 14.5 points per game, 5.6 rebounds per game. Best field goal shooting player on this team at 52.6%. Had a 4-game steal streak and double-digit points in all but 6 games. And is 6th in the Gulf South Conference for field goal percentage. Also made the GSC All-Tournament team. And then Malik Leach, coming off the bench, the second point guard coming off the bench for this Blazer team. Their starting point guard they have their starting point guard in MJ Jones, but Malik Leach has been on a tear recently through 2025, 10.6 points per game, 2.0 rebounds a game, and 1.4 assists per game, shooting 46% on the floor, and an 8-game, 10-plus point streak from January 25th to February 24th. Has had 7 10-plus point games in the last 10 that he's played, and is on a 9-game assist streak. For Valdosta State, 5th in points per game at 93.3, 20th in offensive rebounds per game at 13.2, 5th in steals per game at 11.3, 2nd in fast break points per game at 25, 7th in paint points per game, 44.6, 9th in second chance points per game, 15.7, 8th in points off of turnovers per game in 22.1, 12th pace, which an estimated 78.3 possessions per 40 minutes. So this team plays with tempo. They play with pace and quickness and tenacity and just running the ball up the court, getting off it, and just getting right into offense. No need for set plays, except for the very rare opportunities where they do. And VSU, as we have discussed probably in detail and overblown it to death on this show and on my calls as well, that VSU is very dribble drive focused, using their strength and momentum to drive through and around opponents, finding and creating open gaps in defensive coverages. 3-point shooting usually doesn't happen until late in the possessions or is a intentional setup for this team. VSU doesn't really run a set. I wrote here that VSU runs a set offense, but that is absolutely not the case. They absolutely run more of a motion offense with some set plays in there, especially on inbounds or off of rebounds. They do it every now and then, but not very often. And the press defense has been something spectacular for Mike Helfer and his squad this season, pressuring ball carriers on inbounds and defensive rebounds, which turns into a man-to-man defense with switching that this team loves to run that's forced a good number of steals this season. Fast break scoring, transition playmaking, paint domination, and quality depth. Scoring and contributions has been some of the greatest strengths of this VSU Blazer team that I've had an absolute pleasure to cover and talk about well in depth with this team this season, especially their depth. Their depth, I believe the last time I checked, the bench points per game is around 30 bench points per game from VSU. You don't see that very often in college basketball where they can go to their bench and you have 5 other guys sitting right there who can come in and make an impact just like the starters did. Then they go sit out, starters come back in, and then they get their chance back on the court. So quality depth has been one of this team's greatest strengths this season. Now, unfortunately, there are a couple weaknesses that I have to point out with this VSU team as well. Teams who emphasize ball movements on inbounds and on offense, kind of ping-ponging the ball and making consistent, quick passes over the top and trying to get the ball out of the reaches of a lot of these players, which also, as a matter of fact, the entire starting lineup for Valdosta State, with the exception of MJ Jones, are over 6'5", or at 6'5" or taller. So that's a lot of reach to go. That's a lot of reach to go around for this Blazer team. But if you can get the ball up and over them or around them somehow to get around that press defense, you usually find yourself having better success in that endeavor. I'm going to call it that. The zone defense has also been a bit of a weak point. Has been a bit of a weak point against Valdosta State this season. Zone defense has given this team a number of fits throughout the season. In cold 3-point shooting nights, you can't shoot under 25% and really expect to come away with the win. And VSU has had that happen multiple times, especially in these past 10 to 15 games where they have had extremely cold shooting nights. So while the 3-pointer is not exactly going to be emphasized, or is not going to be the focal point of this offense, you need to be able to knock down your shots when you have them, or just stick to what works. And their opponent they'll be facing off against will be the Lynn University Fighting Knights, the number 5 seed, in which VSU has an 8-3 all-time record against the Fighting Knights. Last time out, Lynn defeated VSU 96-85 at West Palm Beach, Florida on November 26th of 2021. This will be the first time these two teams meet in the postseason, and moving on to the Fighting Knights of Lynn University out of the Sunshine State Conference, the number 5 seed in the South region, 20-8 overall, 14-8 in Sunshine State Conference play, 12-2 at DeHornell Sports Center, 6-6 on the road. They were riding a 6-game win streak before their semifinal matchup against Florida Southern. Had a 10-1 stretch from December 10th, which is a 83 to 56 win over Weber International to January 25th of this year, which was a 101 to 84 win over Palm Beach Atlantic. They ended the season 2-4 in their last 6 road games. So road games absolutely not a strength of this team, although they are faring a little better than Savannah State. It's the first time that Lynn has earned 20 wins since the 2018-19 season, where they went to 25-7. They defeated Palm Beach Atlantic 85 to 66 at home, then lost to Florida Southern 83 to 88 in the Sunshine State Conference semifinal, dropping them here in the number 5 seed. Last time they made it to the tournament, they made a Sweet 16 appearance, but lost to Nova Southeastern in the 2018-19 season, unfortunately dropping the South region. They've made it to the semifinals in the 2004-2005 season, where they beat Montevallo in the South region to win that title, beat Findlay in the Elite 8 round, then lost to Virginia Union in the Final Four 61 to 76. They're looking for their first win in the NCAA tournament since that 2019 Sweet 16 run. So it's been around 5 to 6 years, or 5 to 6 seasons, I want to say, since Lynn has gone dancing, and they'll do so once again. Leo Beth, 6'8", 210 junior forward, 18.1 points per game, 9.1 rebounds a game, one of 10 Division II players this season to record a triple-double. Team leader in points per game and rebounds per game, first team All-Sunshine State Conference, and it made the all-tournament team as well. Carson Smith, 16.8 points per game, 5.1 rebounds per game, 3.3 assists per game, has scored double-digit points in all but one game, and made a three-pointer in all but one game, shot over 50% in 5 of his last 10, and made the All-SSC second team. Rounding out with Braden Ayuli, 12.1 points per game, shooting 52% on the floor as a guard, which is just bonkers. 12 10-plus point games this season, had a double-double against Eckerd and a Dominican out of New York. He's had 11 games this season, shooting over 50% under first-year head coach Bill Morasco's first season at the helm. This Lynn University team, they live and die by the three-pointer, as they're second in three-point attempts per game at 35.3, third in three-point attempt rate at 49.6%. So 50% of their possessions will end in them taking a three-pointer. You could literally flip a coin, and half the time, they'll just chuck a three, and they'll see how it goes. They're 10th in field goal attempts per game at 71.6 per game, so they put a high volume of shots up at the basket. 5th in assists per game of 19, 14th points per game at 87.8, 12th in defensive rebounds per game. So while they're able to chuck the three, they're also able to get the ball right back so they can go back to doing it again, averaging 28.5 defensive rebounds a game, and have one of the best scoring margins in Division II at plus 12.7. So they're outscoring their opponents by around 13 a game. Now, Lynn has much more of a slower-paced offense that prefers to run sets and plays, particularly some 4-out with more emphasis on particularly more emphasis on three-point shooting at any point during the possession, early, middle, and late. Kind of more indicative of small ball. Kind of reminds me a lot of the 2016, 2017, 2018 Warriors in that sense, relying on slick passing and dribble drive kickouts. But they'll take the layup if the defense focuses too much on the threat on the perimeter. They kind of play a 1-3-1 and a 3-2 defense with extra pressure applied on the perimeter, or at least according to the game that I watched where they played against Palm Beach Atlantic. This is a bit in contrast to, I believe I said Tampa, Tampa, where they don't really, or maybe it wasn't Tampa. I think it might have been Florida Southern. But one of these teams also plays zone defense as well, but they don't really put a lot of pressure up on the ball carriers, or at least up on the ball carriers on the perimeters. So they've had some struggle with that, but Lynn does the exact opposite. They pressure ball carriers up at the perimeter in their zone defense. Obviously, the above average 3-point shooting from nearly all spots on the arc and at the break 3-point shooting has been this team's best asset this season. The fluidity of their offense as well, being able to go to slow set plays to motion all around to finding the 3-point shot that they want. But of course, as I just said earlier, you live by the 3-pointer, you die by the three-pointer, as Lynn has no mid-range game whatsoever. If you take a look at the heat graph, at the heat map of Lynn on CBB Analytics, you will see that this team sparingly takes a mid-range shot. It's either all in the paint or all beyond the arc. Mid-range shooting does not exist with this team, or at least that's what I have seen so far. So they live and die by the three-pointer, which could potentially turn into a 2018 Rockets versus Warriors in Game 7. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And facing a physical team as well, that could also spell a little bit of worry and concern for this Lynn team. Of course, they will face off against Valdosta State. Last time these two faced, Lynn defeated VSU, but of course VSU is going to look to turn the page. And that's it for the South region. A lot of teams to go over and a lot that I was able to talk about through this episode. Did a ton of research for this episode, and we'll just have to see how the South region plays out. Hopefully most of my research was done. Hopefully most of the research I did actually came out to be somewhat correct. Otherwise, I won't cry myself to sleep otherwise, because I can be right, because you can be right or wrong. But we'll just see how the games will all turn out. So Nova Southeastern versus Savannah State, Alabama Huntsville versus Tampa, Florida Southern versus Montevallo, and Valdosta State versus Lynn. Those are your South region matchups. And this has been the South region rundown. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this Extra Ember with yours truly, Jaylan Scott. I will see you all for the next Inferno episode, which, by the way, we will not have one as spring break is coming up for Valdosta State, so we'll all be away from campus or back at home or at work. So no episode coming out during spring break, but I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go Blazers.